We have our election debate coming up. We have 4 pointed questions for our representatives from the Congress and the BJP, including, do they have one main issue in such a big election? Now, representing the BJP this evening on the Decision 09 debate is Ravi Shankar Prasad. Good evening and thanks for coming back, Mr. Prasad. And Mr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi, spokesperson of the Congress party, is also with us. I have 4 questions, gentlemen, because we wanted to make today's debate both more balanced and more pointed. So I want to pick up on the key issues which came up today, just before phase 1 of voting. And may I begin by asking you first, and I'll come to you for a response, Mr. Prasad, but to you, Mr. Singhvi, first. The Prime Minister met editors this morning, and he made a statement which alarmed a lot of people. He said, after running a coalition that includes so many regional parties, he said regional parties are the obstacle to growth. Give me a pointed answer, Mr. Singhvi. If the Prime Minister of a coalition government that needs the support of regional players says regional parties are an obstacle to growth, will he have the same point of view after the 16th of May and say, I will not ally with parties that are an obstacle to growth? These were his words.
Arnab, you have to appreciate the comment in the context which is made. The Prime Minister was not talking about any particular regional party. The Prime Minister was not criticizing any particular grouping. The Prime Minister was actually conveying a sentiment, and let me tell you, if you took a poll on that, you would have 90% people having the same sentiment, that there is a cacophony and a seeming chaos in a democracy with over 55 odd parties. So what he was saying was that sometimes the things we criticize, uncertainty, slow decision making, the lack of a consensus to pass a statute, much less a constitutional amendment, to take bold steps for development, these things suffer because by consensus, by a law which these very 55 parties will have to agree to, we can perhaps try to reduce the number of parties. That's the sentiment which is expressing. It has nothing to do with coalition politics. We all know we're in an era of that. We know that we cannot, but it could be still a constructive suggestion for the future.
Okay, I will take a quick interjection because if, from Ravi Shankar Prasad, in the backdrop of the fact that the manifesto was released, the Prime Minister said left parties are regressive. Now he says regional parties are an obstacle to growth. Will he tie up with regressive parties that are an obstacle to growth after May 16th? That we'll know only after May 16th. Quick interjection from Ravi Shankar Prasad to that first question.
Well, Arnab, the Prime Minister of India was not speaking as a professor of political science in a seminar. The Prime Minister means something, it has to be taken very seriously. And the surprising part it has come from a Prime Minister who has been heading a coalition government by so many parties together. I think this whole comment is against the whole federal principle of our constitution. Regional parties have a role. Large number of them have done very well with popular support, without any patronage from the Congress party. Therefore, to wish them away as an obstacle to growth is the real point in issue which you are trying to highlight perhaps. Okay. And I say this particular expression is highly condemnable. Many regional parties have done well. I think if Mr. Manmohan Singh is trying to lament his own agony as to how he has dealt with them, if he would have been a towering leader, he could have been able to brush them aside. But that cannot be generalized to the extent that
I would like
regional
to move to question 2. In an interview to Times Now, Lalu Prasad ended, Mr. Singhvi, I don't know if you noticed that, he ended the third front, fourth front divide. He said everybody will work with everybody, everything is possible, and it's only perhaps politicians who are looking at fronts now. If that is the case, the third and fourth fronts are coming together as it appeared clear after that interview in Patna. Are you worried? Because you could get sidelined. The Congress could be fewer seats than the third and fourth front together. In that case, you'll have to give way to them.
There is no question, Arnab. These are persons who are still with the UPA. They are persons who have been with the UPA. And it is true that the only permanent divide of Indian politics, that's the reality, it's a fact of life. The only permanent, irremovable, unerasable watershed of Indian politics is the Congress on the one side and the BJP and perhaps a few parties like the Shiv Sena on the other. Never the twain shall meet applies to these two sets of parties. It is equally true that other parties have been over the years changing their partnerships, and that's a fact of life. And to an extent it's true that a lot of these things will fall into place after the 16th. But that is not to say that there is suddenly a new worry because there's another fifth front which is equal to the fourth or third front put together. There's no such thing.
Okay. Now, a lot of the viewers of News Hour, Mr. Prasad, write back to us after the show. And increasingly, a lot of viewers are telling us, please ask one question to your political guest. And though the question may seem very simple, I put it first to you and then to the Congress. India votes tomorrow, the first phase of voting. The question our viewers want asked on popular demand on the show this evening is that besides the slanging matches which spokespersons on both sides and even the leaders at the highest levels now take a lot of vicarious pleasure in, and I must accept even the media does, what is the one main issue in this election for the BJP and the Congress? Don't give me a plethora of issues. What is the one issue? First to you, Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad, because it seems the BJP has no one single issue.
I'm sorry to say, Arnav, you're not fair to me, that we have no issue. Three clear issues, if I can say that. Rising prices. Today also sugar, pulse, basmati rice, all have become costlier. And no, just a minute. Rising unemployment. Jobs in lakhs are getting taken away. And the rising threat of Taliban at our doorsteps. And Sonia Gandhi is saying that forces within the country are more dangerous than that from outside. No. The legacy of an insecure India and suffering India is an issue which we are highlighting.
You haven't given me one issue. Would you like to pick up any one of them and say this is the one issue? Like in one election it was the Ram Temple issue for us. Many more than a decade back. This time we don't have that one kind of an issue. Do I understand you correctly, Mr. Prasad?
Arnav Goswami, I'm sorry to say, the quality of political discourse in campaign cannot be determined by the demands of a particular media and their viewers. I said three clear issues are there. I'm traveling in the country where I'm finding that issue. People are responding to that. Rising prices, rising unemployment, the way they have mishandled it, and also the rising threat perception to our integrity and security because Taliban at our doorsteps. People are realizing that. And therefore, I very briefly said, and I'm quite sure your viewers will also appreciate that.
I take you at face value. I'm only surprised. I thought Mr. Advani would be one of your main issues, or maybe the main issue would be Mr. Advani. But I put that question now to Abhishek Manu Singhvi. What is the one issue, Mr. Singhvi, for the Congress party? Can you point out one?
Three or four very short and quick answers. Number one, this cannot be a single issue election merely because we wish it to be so or because you frame your question like that. That wouldn't be really possible to say that it's a one single issue election. Two, the main issues for the Congress, and I won't give you a long list, are there in the first 2 or 3 pages of our manifesto. And the first of that is remarkably diverse, inclusive schemes for development. We want to carry that story further. Give us a chance. That's the main issue. The third point is that it is equally an issue that those who cannot hold the country together or want to divide the country or make divisive agendas ought not to be given a chance to rule. And the fourth issue is that the opposition is issueless. And that fourth issue encapsulates a whole series
fourth issue
of
that
non-issues.
the opposition is issueless.
Like
we will leave that as usual for
a fourth issue for us
of the News Hour this evening to judge for themselves whether they can wean out of that entire discussion one principal issue for both sides. But for articulating it so well, Ravi Shankar Prasad and Mr. Singhvi, I must thank you once again for coming on the News Hour this evening. Thank you very much. And please tell us what you think of their views as well. That's the email address, newshour@timesgroup.com.